Have you ever wondered what the worst beauty treatments have been over the last century? And in fact, even in current times? Well, we've come a long way, but there have been some wild and frankly scary trends that were once considered the height of beauty. And you can probably think of some today in your mind right now that you think are crazy. Some of these are cringy, some are downright dangerous, but they all teach us one thing. Sometimes we think we know what we're doing, but do we? And what about these glasses? Well, I had lenses placed in my eyes and I can't be exposed to certain wavelengths of light, so I'm being extra cautious, but they will come off at some point. So what's number one? You'll be shocked at this one. We'll kick it off with the 1920s and one of the most toxic beauty trends ever. You might think Botox is toxic. Maybe it will prove to be. But how about lead-based face powder? Lead-based. You see, back then, having pale, flawless skin was the ideal thing. It was the ideal look. I kind of think of like glass skin today, but glass skin has that kind of glare and shine to it. That was a flat white look is what they went for. And they used powder to get it. But that powder was laced with lead to achieve the ghostly glow. The only problem here? Well, lead, as you know, it's poisonous. So over time, it caused the skin damage, the hair loss, and even lead poisoning in extreme cases. It did. Lead interferes, you see, with your body's ability to produce healthy skin cells. And that leads to sallow, gray skin. So yeah, not exactly the fountain of youth they were going for. Lesson learned, when it comes to skincare, read the labels. Number two, this one's going to blow your mind. Radiation beauty. This is 1940s to 1950s now. You heard right. Back in the 40s and 50s, some skincare companies thought it was a great idea to add radioactive ingredients like radium to their beauty products. They believed that glow from radioactive materials would give your skin a youthful radiance too. I mean, technically, they were not wrong. Your skin did glow, but for all the wrong reasons. Turns out exposure to radiation isn't great for your skin or even your systemic health. It led to burns, sores, and some tragic cases, people actually got cancer, of course. People back then, they didn't realize exactly how dangerous radiation was. So beauty companies cashed in on the glow. Before we go on, you can comment on what you think today's equivalent is. What's today's equivalent of radiation? My guess is you're all going to say Botox. Who the heck will put a toxin in your face? We're going to come to regret that. Maybe it's Ozempic. That would be one of my top ones as well. Number three is old school taping your face. Yeah, 1940s face taping. Have you ever heard of Hollywood face taping? Well, back then, actresses would tape their faces back to create that instant facelift, much like people use some of the face tape now. And it was perfect for their close-ups because the cameras weren't like they are today in HD. There were also no fillers, there was no Botox, and there was no laser resurfacing. The idea was to pull the skin back and hide the tape underneath wigs or hats. But long term, not so glam. You see, repeatedly pulling back the skin in these unnatural directions, kind of how they pulled them, that led to sagging and damage. That's how we know that that can occur. You see, there were no filters either on social media or camera angles to hide behind, and people had to go out and be seen in person. So it wasn't they could just put up these social media posts and be out there and people felt like they knew them. They actually had to go see real people in real life. So for a film, once they did that, then they were destined to use that evergreen, to always use that face tape or hair tape or tape pulling because they couldn't reveal their true face and their true sag and their true wrinkles in public again. Plus, can you imagine the headaches? Taping may have given a quick fix for those photos or the video, but in real life, it probably caused more lines than it smoothed long term. Probably bought them a couple of years. Number 4, vibrating fat belts. So let's move on now to when. Can you guess when? Because we can kind of remember this one. the 60s. This is when one of the weirdest beauty trends took the stage, the vibrating fat belt. You know, the machines where you stood there and the thing went around you and it jiggled the belly, the thighs, even the butt, and it promised what? To melt away fat without any effort. You didn't have to do anything. It was going to do it all for you. We know things like that today, like cryolipolysis, cool sculpting, right? They actually work. But this vibration didn't. And people believed that shaking your fat would make it disappear. In fact, all it really did was give you sore muscles and even dizziness. There was no science backing it up whatsoever. But the promise of a quick fix with zero effort was just too tempting. We see this exactly today too as well. Unfortunately, we now know that fat loss doesn't work that way. Exercise and diet are still the gold standard. But as I mentioned, you get it, it all comes back around like Ozempic. What I will say is that some people are successful with these devices you stand on and they shake these plates, and they're successful mainly with cellulite reduction. I do see that in my clinic. Number 5, sunbathing with what? Can you guess? We're in the 1980s now, the age of big hair and even bigger tanning mistakes. One of the worst trends of the decade, sunbathing with baby oil. Instead of sunscreen, people would slather themselves in baby oil and literally roast in the sun for hours to get the golden glow. Little did they know they were fast-tracking their way to wrinkles, sunspots, and unfortunately, skin cancer. I still see some of these people in my clinic, of course, and it's taken thousands of dollars, sometimes tens of thousands of dollars. A CO2 laser is costing $3,000 to $4,000 per pop, and you need about 3 of them to remove sunspots and photo damage. Research shows that UV radiation causes a whopping 80% of visible aging on your skin. That includes loose skin, sunspots, sag, everything. That's a lot. So if you can get rid of that, you're on your way to tighter, better, more glowing skin. And now people seem to know that. There's a select few people that still do the roasting. Pro tip here, ditch the baby oil, embrace the SPF. If you're worried about skin cancer and sunscreen, many of you are, I'll link a video at the end where I go over that and some of that data. Number 6, bee sting facials. Now we're in the early 2000s. This is when I started in the industry. The beauty craze at that time was the bee sting facial. Yep, people paid good money to have bee venom applied to their faces. Sometimes even directly from a live bee. Yeah, a live bee. And some of it was real bee venom. I recall in one of my clinics, it was across from Microsoft up in Seattle. I had a location there. We sold a ton of snake venom skincare. People would come across the street. I never really did like it. And I kind of told people as much, but it was trending. And it was about over $300 for a small thing of it. Snake venom skincare. The idea was that it was similar to Botox. It was said to, the bee venom itself, it was said to plump the skin and reduce wrinkles, creating that natural Botox effect. But it was through what? Mainly inflammation. The reality is you're just making your skin swell. For some people, it can even lead to allergic reactions, rashes, and certainly a small group of people, anaphylactic shock. That's the kind of shock from when you get with a bee sting or people eat peanuts where you lose your blood pressure, and it's a bad thing. But yeah, it was definitely expensive. I'll stick with snail mucin serums. Watch my video on those. There is some good science there. You'll now want to watch this video on a more serious note for med spa and aesthetic treatments you should avoid today, and one down here on glass skin and snail mucin to keep your skin and body beautiful, healthy, and vibrant.